Hello, my friends, and welcome to FISHTORY. I'm Alexander Williamson, your host of FISHTORY today, and I'll always be the host of FISHTORY. So, welcome and Happy New Year's. Let's talk about the trends of the year 2025 in the aquarium hobby. Now, I love doing this episode every year. This is our 7th annual installment, so thank you so much for joining us. And my cat is running around here acting crazy, so pardon if you hear her meowing or tumbling or whatnot. But we're talking about fish, plants, and aquariums and the hobby in general. So the structure of this episode is going to be in 3 parts. So we're going to have a part talking about big box stores and the hobby in terms of filters and actual aquarium styles and the actual design of the aquariums, like how rimless has become more popular in the last few years, and how CO2 has become more popular, and you can actually go out and buy these kits rather than having to know about it and DIY this kind of stuff in a specialty niche like it was years ago. So we're going to talk about those changes and those specific things you're going to be able to go into the store, check out, and buy. Then we're going to talk about number 2, which is the stuff that the hobby just does. So being online chronically, like me, and being a part of the fish hobby, the stuff that, is just popular. What, tissue culture plants are going to be the hot thing this year. What kinds of wood or stone or little miniature trees made out of wood or made out of now molds. So they're actually making fake stone arrangements that are molded, and they're just a resin, and they look beautiful, but they're going to be the same in every tank, but they're done by, say, a master aquascaper, and then they're literally poured into some sort of like a silicone encasement, and then a mold is made out of it, and then they sell that as a kit. So these are things that go on more independently and done by individual businesses or entrepreneurs or DIY people, or trends set in the hobby by people like YouTubers. So things like making the little above water aquarium or the bridge that connects to aquariums. Those are trends you'll see, and we'll talk about all of that kind of as the second part. Now the third part is going to be, what should you breed? What is going to be the big hot ticket items? Which fish, what kind of variations of existing fish are we going to see, and what technology is going to play a role in that? Because now we have everything from line breeding to GMO stuff, where we're tweaking genes or we're fusing genes that, glow fluorescent under a black light. And now we may even see things like glow in the dark fish that actually charge with UV light, and then they, light from the sun and things, and then glow at night for a period. So the future of fish is getting pretty high tech and pretty strange. A lot of people are against this, and a lot of people are excited about it, just like glowfish has been very divisive. But whichever side you're on, I'd love to hear about it. So you may ask, who is this guy who's about to talk about these 3 sections, these 3 topics? Well, I'm Alex Williamson, of course, from FISHTORY, but just go back and watch my forecast videos for how the world economy, conflict and war, things humans are doing, and trade agreements and so forth, how that's impacting the hobby in ways you wouldn't expect, making it, for instance, impossible to get fish out of the Congo or out of Colombia or out of Brazil. These are things I talk about in a different episode every year called the Conflict or World Conflict Impact Series and Forecast. But this one here, I happen to know about because I am part of the hobby. I talk to lots of hobbyists and I talk to lots of business owners. So you can just kind of go back and see how my accuracy has been at forecasting these things if you're curious. And it's kind of fun to see what was happening, because I talk about what was hot that current year as I'm guessing about the future. So take a look back at those if you'd like to. Maybe I'll put them into a playlist one of these days. There's quite a few of them now. There's going to be 7 of those and 7 of the conflict ones at least. And of course, we'll be talking about it on the live stream all week as well if you'd like to join us. So without further ado, let's hop into that first section, which is the big trends by the big boys, the well-funded big box stores, PetSmart, Petco, Chewy, you know, all the online stuff, and big chains around the world. What are we gonna see? Well, licensed figures and characters is one thing we're gonna see. So licensing in the aquarium hobby, what do we mean? Well, I'm talking about things like when you go to the store and you see Elf the movie and they've got 5 figurines from Elf, and at Halloween they had The Nightmare Before Christmas, and so on and so forth. We're gonna have the Marvel Universe, we're gonna have Aquaman in the aquarium, we're gonna have whatever's hot, you know, Star Wars, those legacy franchises, all those kind of things. I think we're going to see more and more merch in that realm because people want to customize their nostalgia. And I think we have some overall themes coming on in the year 2025. And I think that nostalgia and kind of customizing your aquarium is going to be one of them. And early on in the aquarium hobby, when you're new, one of the only ways you can do that is the way you decorate your aquarium. And maybe you're not ready to be, you know, aquascaping or, you know, choosing plants and texture and color and different stones and things like this, and, you know, what color of fish or what type of fish match, plus what gets along, plus the science of taking care of it all. It's easier just to put a figurine in there, right? And when that matches the decor in your life, and they can kind of twist your arm, maybe put your favorite music, your favorite band, and incorporate that other fandoms or bigger hobbies into the aquarium hobby, it means money. And the licensing fees and things like that also mean money. So if that was successful, which it seems to have been, that's definitely something we will see more of. Now, I have some notes here. These are all my notes. And if I look down at them every once in a while, that's what I'm doing. And if you hear that scratching sound, that's the cat playing with the lighting equipment. Sorry. So I think we're also going to see more of the pre-made, ready-to-go, nature-looking stuff. So there's going to be bonsai trees made out of wood. There's going to be bonsai trees made out of plastic resin. We're already seeing this. You see the fake rocks, those have been around for years, but now we're starting to see logs and, you know, spawning caves, things like that, that have these features built in. The thing like the cave that's a magnet, and the one side is for the inside of the tank, and the other side is a magnet that kind of looks like a rock on the outside of the tank. And you can pull that away and actually peek in and see your cichlids or your pleco having its babies or taking care of its eggs in a situation where normally you'd have no idea. So I think this, as well as maybe even some, I could see it. So, you know, give me the credit if you haven't made it, but you got the idea from me. You know, I'm sure that'll work out for me. But what about some cameras in caves? Cameras are dirt cheap now. Waterproof cameras that are the size of your pinky, no problem. And, you know, it'd be easy to do, to have an app on your phone like Pleco View or Cichlid View and be able to check on your eggs and your baby fry just like that. Or your fish in general in your tank with a little rock or a plant or figurine that's watching them. So I think tech in general is going to get bigger and bigger in this hobby. And, you know, one of the ways I like to check on what is coming to the hobby, what is coming to America, what's coming next, what we should prepare for, is by looking at things like Temu, like Alibaba, like eBay, and places like that, Home Goods, you know, weird stores that have decorations and things like that, because a lot of times they will make 200,000 of a mold for something, and it behooves them to make them useful for something else, or to sell figurines, like I was saying, of Batman, to also sell them as maybe die-cast figurines at a card and comic book store, so that that mold that had to be made for 100,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is, the custom mold that's going to be used hundreds of thousands of times or tens of thousands of times, so that that price comes down per unit. And sometimes you'll see those products on things like Temu. Well, Asia, India, the rest of Southeast Asia in general, behind China, copies what's going on in China, in Shenzhen, in the big manufacturing cities. And when a big company places an order like Petco or PetSmart, the local people at the local factories take notice, and they try to make a version usually and throw it online before even Petco or PetSmart. And a lot of times while they're waiting for proofs and checking and making sure it looks okay and all that, to their standards, deciding how many to order and all that, waiting for the economic forecast, these companies over there are just hitting print, you know, and they are making the things. And so sometimes you can find hints of what's coming in the future in bigger brands and in bigger stores in the US by looking at what's going on in China and India and Southeast Asia. Just a little hint there. But I'm going to keep the other hints on where to look and who to talk to in my pocket, so I can, you know, have job security here. So, you know, beyond that, I think we're going to see a lot of lighting. So continued use of LEDs. Those have been a game changer over the big T5 lighting and things like that. But I think we're going to continue to see the price come down on things like spot lighting or things like mood lighting, sound reactive lighting, stuff that definitely doesn't care at all about the fish. It's all about the aesthetic of the tank, of the aquarium. And I think that we'll see more of this. You know, there was like a disco looking, I think it was even called a disco fish tank or something at PetSmart or Petco. And it was a kit, and the bottom of the tank lit up, and then they did the rimless cubes, and then they did it where those lit up with a color changing LED in the base, and the edges, rather than being blue like this, they would change color. And so I think that that's been successful. The glow fish, the glow in the dark, the black light, all that stuff has been successful. So I think they're going to incorporate more of that. You're going to see more black light and UV light type stuff. Now I have videos on that, and it turns out it's not great for developing spinal cords and vision in small fish. But that's a whole different subject. You can go watch my video on blue lights and blue aquarium lights as well. Like just the color blue in general also has an impact, which is interesting, and the health of your fish. So speaking of not really caring about the health of your fish, a lot of these big box stores, I think they're going to have a lot more clip-on stuff in the tanks, and I think that we're going to see a revolution that we've already been seeing begin in the home hobbyist, or section 2 that we'll talk about, the hobby at large, where people are 3D printing these cool objects at home to use in their fish tank. Things like, you know, like Aquarium Co-op made their little bubble collar thing for their sponge filter. Well, people could 3D print that and prototype that from home. The tower of the planter that I tried out, the Habistax, that's getting printed. And different models have come out and been tried and been altered, and now it's going to market. So check that out if you want to still check on Habistax. So kind of interesting. But I think, you know, in general, we're going to see that in the big box store. We're going to see a lot of stuff that's hanging from the side of your tank. And, you know, whether you think that looks good or it's cluttered or it's tacky or, you know, whatever you think about it, doesn't really matter because it's coming, I think. And a lot of that is inspired from kind of lesser and less obvious, let's say that, less obvious home or DIY versions, or versions that are prototyped on a 3D printer for the sake of economy and the person's creativity, rather than like the look of it not being designed by architects or industrial designers, or, you know, somebody who gets paid to make it look sleek and have a feel, and pick colors and other things. So it's definitely the function over the form in that case. And I think that starts at home and at the home hobbyist, or in part 2, which we're getting to in a moment. But I think we'll see that in the big box stores too. I think we're going to start to see a lot more of them trying to sell the reptile goods and the amphibian goods with aquariums. So they're going to try to sell you those white ribbon plants or the purple waffle plant or any of those other plants for the terrarium. They're going to try to sell for the aquarium. And while pothos and many other plants you can already see in the hobby on a lot of aquariums, or people let plants grow immersed up and out of their tank, I think they're going to kind of sell it as a feature and have tissue cultures or the little nursery grown starting little well, starts. Sorry, I don't have my words. My words aren't good. So the last thing I want to really talk about in these big trends are the fake wood and rock, and we'll talk about that in a moment, and the kind of diorama look of, you used to only see top-end aquascapers making dioramas that look like Lord of the Rings or something, or a little quiet Chinese village with an old man figurine fishing on a dock or something at the top of their aquarium. And I think those figurines have been popular, but I also think like broken down Buddhist temples and things like that, making those more modular, I think could be popular, so that you can, again, customize just like the licensing is doing. When you're licensing other fandoms, other hobbies, you can include things like history, World War II, old ships, crash planes, things like that. I think all of that ties in, and we're just going to see the miniaturization of a lot of things in the hobby. But along with that, we're going to see things made out of resin or silicone or plastic that normally would have taken a long time to culture in an aquarium. Something like this, where you've got a big old piece of wood that has moss all over it and it takes years. You can take a piece of PVC pipe, sell it with mesh around it and a little start of moss, and within a few months you can make it look pretty good. Same thing with if you're selling wood, they're already selling sculpted molds of very convincing looking pieces of wood, like spiderwood or Mopani driftwood, lookalikes. Not that they won't stop selling the actual wood and botanicals. And I think also on that note, actually, let me mention that I think botanicals in the big box stores, we're going to see a lot more of that, because they already see that the almond leaves, the tannin stained water for your betta, all that is big money already for them, and it costs them almost nothing. So that is the last of the big box stuff that I wanted to talk about. But for the hobby overall, let's talk about some of the changes I see. And as a transition, let's talk about specifically glowfish. So glowfish and the technology therein, $1 million company, was bought out of Singapore and now operates in Texas basically, but they still have people in Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan, that are always working, and they're doing things for usually scientific research on mixing genes, genetically modifying organisms like rice fish to study things like brain cancer or Parkinson's or, these kind of noble causes. But they may need thousands of these fish where the brain tissue glows, and so they've worked out how to do that, or where just the the blood in the fish has a color when exposed to UV light, for instance, and maybe the blood of another organism already does that, and so they mix that gene. Well, I think we're going to see a whole new frontier, and we're going to see some leakage, and not just the glowfish, which my personal prediction from what I've seen, we saw the glowfish angelfish. I told you the glowfish Cory and angelfish were on the way years ago, and now I see the glowfish shrimp, the glowfish pleco, and the glow in the dark. So it'll have to have another name, I think, but maybe cosmic or stellar or something, But they can put proteins, or basically they can put cells into these organisms that would make them charge in the light and then put off phosphorescent light or bioluminescence at night, not just under a black light and not just cartoon looking, but rather they might be rather innocuous or normal looking, especially the kind of clear or see-through fish, something like a reed tetra or a little minnow of some sort that's just kind of silver, maybe even Congo tetras. It wouldn't be super noticeable probably, and then you'd turn off the lights and all of a sudden they'd glow. So whether this is humane, whether they're always glowing and the fish hasn't evolved to deal with its eyesight and the fact that it's always glowing too, or who knows what the complications are. I don't know if that would be a problem, but my point is that there are things that people would chime in about. They couldn't sell them legally in Europe, although that hasn't stopped glowfish from making their way to Europe and being sold pretty openly a lot of places, I hear. And that's the same in California. Glowfish are not supposed to be sold in California. They end up in California. I saw them at stores there myself. I saw them at big chain stores. So when these big businesses get involved, it takes the idea of these little aquarists, hobbyists, enthusiasts, and it gets pretty crazy. Just like my video on the Yakuza in Japan and how they made pink Medaka rice fish at the university, and some student brought them home 10 years earlier, a decade earlier, these beautiful like bright pink Medaka, and he sold, you know, a pair to a shop owner, and word got out on the street that they had these kind of underground fish selling for $1,000 a piece. And sooner or later, the Yakuza wanted to cut, and soon they were running out of the back of this shop. So it's just crazy. You can watch the video for the full story. But again, people will do crazy things to design these rare, unusual, or never seen fish. Things like flower horns. You know, I guess we've lost the lighting. I guess we're not glowfish, you guys. Hold on. Let's move settings here. All right, pardon that, my friends. We just flipped the camera around. How's that? It's New Year's and it's getting dark. But the light of the glow of the aquariums will keep us warm, and you'll probably see a crazy cat swooping around from time to time. But as I was saying, people breeding interesting, weird hybrids using things like CRISPR and genetics, using the DNA and the GMO modifying technology, it's bound to happen in the hobby. I am shocked it hasn't happened on a large scale yet, but it's something I definitely could see happening soon. Same with the technology we're seeing incorporating cameras, like I was saying. I'm surprised there's not a company that's making the Ring doorbell camera version for your tanks so that anybody with a fish room can have a camera in each tank and check on them from work on an app. Things like this will be coming. They're not something I thought of. They're something that exists and that could be done already, but somebody needs to have the know-how and the, you know, academic and business prowess to put it together, the technological skill and knowledge, and also the, you know, business savvy. So we shall see what is the first thing out there on the market, right? All right, so I also think we're going to see more in the way of customizable aquarium hardscape stuff. So spray foam that settles, texture, so actual products that are out there. I think bigger companies may be involved, but I think there probably are products already known and already out there that can be modified and used in the aquarium hobby. Things like the expanding gray spray foam gets used to make rocks and aquascape settings and things. Resin as well, and various other things that people know what's safe versus what's not when they research online and look into it. But I think more and more of that is going to be coming, and when it gets branded for the aquarium, it's going to cost you double, if not triple. So look out for that as well, and just know that there's probably a cheaper way out there to figure it out. Now, I think also we're going to see an emphasis on more botanicals. We have quite a few, but just like the world of the legal cannabis side of things, where they're breaking down CBD and CB, you know, all the different compounds and the Delta-9 and all the cannabinols, all that kind of stuff, I think we're going to see something similar with, for instance, tannins. You're going to see people saying like the Xingu River tannin formula for your plecos versus this pack for your bettas and this one for your rasboras. That's something that they're already starting to kind of make botanical grab bags and mix packs of stuff that's from there. But I also foresee people understanding that the gut biome of fish is very important. For instance, plecos don't eat wood. There's maybe one species, there even one or two that eat wood at all, period, anyways, that it's in their stomach. The rest are just on the wood, and it looks like they're eating the wood. And it might be soggy, broken down wood, but they're eating the bacteria, they're eating the biofilm, they're eating the fungus, they're eating, you know, what's on there, the microscopic organisms. And that is not in the hobby. very well at all. And a lot of fish like the plecos, the whiptail cats, the autocats, loaches, things like that, they're really not getting their proper nutrients. And I think just like the saltwater side of things figured that out with, you know, microorganisms and plankton and zooplankton and phytoplankton and selling that, that's going to be something we need to figure out. I don't know if it's going to be in 2025, but it's something that I see coming, and whoever figures it out is going to make some money. Even if it's just like amino acid supplements, even when they add things like yeast to foods that are already on the market, that's a big deal. You know, pollen, yeast, different vegetative components, spirulina, that stuff, it is actually in their environment and in what they evolved to be able to eat. Things like seed pods and things like that also, and way more than just black soldier fly larvae. We're going to see more insect food, more proteins based on insects for not just our fish, you know, but for amphibians and reptiles as well. So I think that's a good thing, and hopefully it will continue to grow, because I don't think the economy is anywhere near stopping at the rate that it's going. I think even fish being kind of a luxury item, that they are something that will continue to be loved by people. It's a pet. They don't see it as a luxury, even if it is, or it's the one luxury that a lot of people afford themselves. That's kind of how I see it for myself, is it's the one thing I really spend my money on. And as I said, the big businesses are trying to cross over, find people who Star Wars is the one thing that they spend their money on, who happen to also like aquariums, and they can put the two together. I think, you know, we're going to find the nature aquarium people are being targeted as well, or people who haven't done the research. I think it's going to be very common to find things like substrates in the future that are sand from this jungle, sand from the Amazon, sand from the Congo. And we see a little bit of that already, but nothing major. I had an idea years ago, and if anybody wants to do this seriously, get in contact with me. What is the cat doing? The cat is clearly going nuts. I apologize if you were wondering what that noise was. Anyways, it is the idea of going and getting whatever habitat the bulk of, for instance, plecos and corridoras and say the river Xingu, or the river, you know, the main Amazon River even. Just what is in the silt, what is in the substrate, what is in scrapings off the log, and literally bring that back, keep it in a big old pool, and then take samples of that living culture to jumpstart bio ecosystems, I guess. I mean, you could call them biotope tanks, but you'd really be taking it to the next level at that point. And it may actually teach us a lot if we were able to do such a thing, because some people are already targeting bringing in the right substrate soil mixtures and sand and dirt and this kind of plant and that kind of soil, even shipping soil in, having people send it to them. So that could be pretty interesting, and I think we're going to learn more in the science end of things about the gut biome of fish and how important that is. So I think that is going to play a big role in our hobby and helping us breed fish we've never bred before, as well as allowing us to grow fish faster and healthier and more types of fish than we ever expected before. Likewise, I think that the native fish and the cold water fish will continue to be a niche part of the hobby, but I think it is growing and is shining an influence into the bigger hobby as a whole, and I think that that will continue. Lastly, I want to talk about, already we mentioned the 3D printing, and we already mentioned the rimless tanks and the stuff that hangs on them and all the little side features and the immersed plants, but I think we're going to see a diverse growth in tissue cultures. I think we're going to see a lot more tissue cultures, both through independent people doing it, through small companies doing it, and through big box stores doing more and more species, because it's another way to enjoy the hobby, customize the tank, and it brings in those people who want to keep plants just as much as fish. But there are so many things out there that are not utilized now, and so many beautiful plants that also, if you're willing to grow them above your aquarium and understand their lighting needs, and even like a hydroponic or aquaponic system, that can bring a whole new level to your aquarium or terrarium. And so the last part of this that I wanted to touch on is the thought of live food for your fish. This is something I predicted last year for the hobby, and it has started in some places. Having brine shrimp left over, or Daphnia, things like that, hatched and ready at stores. But I'm hoping it makes it to the big box stores at some point, having at least black worms and some sort of vinegar eel or something like that. The really easy stuff, but maybe even the stuff you got to keep up with daily. And I think that at the same time we see that, we're going to see people incorporating, like myself, springtails, isopods, vinegar eels, more types of shrimp, more types of snails, more of the ecosystem at large into our hobby and into an amphibious world where we let the tank kind of spill out into our homes a little more than it ever did in the past. So this is all food for thought, and we're going to do the species as a separate episode. I just didn't know it at the time that we'd run short, but I can't be quick enough apparently. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts, inputs, what I missed, what I didn't have time to cover, and I'd love to hear what you'd like to see, even if you don't think that's what's coming, but like, what would you hope is coming in the next year? On that note, I hope you all have a good year and a good start to the year, and I'll be here right on the FISHTORY channel if you need to get a hold of me or you want to learn something nerdy. So thanks for watching, hitting that like button, and sharing like all of you do so often makes such a big difference, and it means the world to me. Same with all you members on YouTube and all of you Discord members. We got a Discord going, so in 2025 we will have a Discord going, and there will be more going on it. I promise you that. And there'll probably be more features of the kitty cat. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I'll see you next time. Take care.